All right, guys. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Results Loading Podcast hosted by Prosperous AI. I'm your host, Michael Atkin, and today I am very excited to introduce Robert Gordon, a seasoned leader with over 25 years of experience in the building and supply industry. He's currently serving as the president of Direct Lumber and Door here in Colorado, and Robert has a proven track record of driving growth, enhancing operational efficiency, and fostering team excellence. Throughout his career, Robert has held various leadership roles, including VP at Southeast, Building Supplies Interest, and General Manager at Builders First Source. He's shown abilities to balance strategic vision with tactical execution, and which has resulted in impressive accomplishments such as achieving double-digit revenue growth, optimizing operations, and implementing innovative talent development programs. With all that being said, I will let him tell us more about all of this himself. Just wanted to lay the foundation a little bit. But with all that being said, Robert, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really looking forward to this one and looking forward to getting started with you.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for that introduction. That's very humbling to hear. So I appreciate that.
Not a problem, man. No, you made it easy. You make it easy. I'm just reading the facts. So, Rob, diving right into it here. You've spent over 25 years in the building supply industry as I kind of just broke down. What inspired you to pursue this path and how did you get started in this business? Take us back to the beginning a little bit and paint a picture for us, if you will.
Right. Well, I think first it was out of necessity. Young man, recently married, had a baby on the way. Found my way into a truss plant and in a little town in Kentucky, and really had no idea, what that was going to lead to at that time. But uh, kind of, as the seasoned veterans say, you kind of grow sawdust in your veins at some point, and it's an industry that just grows on you, and you can't really get away from it, even if you tried. And that's really how I got started, working at the truss plant, and then working my way through there, and then getting into a manager training program with another company, and working my way up the ladder, and learning as much as I could about the industry, and really just getting excited about it. I think that's what inspired me. Once I realized, that it wasn't, just something that I could do, but something that I could help other people succeed in life as well with.
Totally. No, and like you said, something to really sink your teeth into, something to get excited about. Obviously, really helpful in terms of trying to grow your career and attain as many skills as possible. Obviously, now a great decision given you're the president of an entire company. I mean, talk to us a little bit about that and the path to running and leading, Direct Lumber and Door here in Colorado and some of the decisions and strategic initiatives along the way that really set that path for you to lead the entire show as you are today.
Right. Well, I think, the biggest thing for me is the willingness to learn new things, understanding that I don't know everything that needs to be known, to grow in the business. Be that person that's willing to outwork everybody else, and be that person that's willing to take risks. I think, it kind of goes into one of the questions we're going to talk about later. How do you can speak to someone who's starting off? Those are those things. You get into situations where, it's a tough world that we live in, and it's a very competitive world. So you have to go in it full fledged, all in, work as hard as you can. You might not be the smartest guy in the room, but something that you can hang your hat on is you can outwork anybody if you set your mind to it. And I think that was key to my success in my career, is my willingness to work hard, learn new things, and be willing to take risks. And by taking risks, for me that meant I moved around. I moved from city to city, state to state, and I think throughout my career I moved 9 times, and I've been in multiple states. So, there's a big risk factor to that because you're going into a new market, you're going into a new situation, new company. You don't know people, but what you know is you know how to put people in the right place and lead by example, work hard. And that's how, I mean, that's my career in a nutshell. Just, working hard and putting myself in a place to grow and be successful.
Totally. And I think you said something really important earlier, pertaining to being the smartest guy in the room versus not. And obviously, I think you know where I'm going with this is, especially with people in your position who are, the president of a company running the entire show, if you will. Even for someone like you who is at the very top of the food chain, um, you should never be, or leaders have said on this podcast, and I agree with it. It is a well-known quote, I think, at this point, that if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Because
Exactly.
then arguably you've hit some sort of growth ceiling and it's hard to learn something new from people who you're smarter than, apparently, obviously.
Right.
And so I think, not to be repetitive, but it is a really important thing and a topic that seems to be recurring with all the leaders that I host here on the show. Because even if, say, you've made it to president of the company as you have, there's still no, there's still ways to continue growing and learning. I mean, I had a guest on the show last week. He's run his company for 45 years. There's pretty
Wow.
much nothing he doesn't know at this point,
Right.
but he's the first one to say, you know what? I'm always trying to learn. I'm a sponge, and that's the only way that you can stay dynamic and fresh, if you will, in an industry that requires that level of learning and growth always, especially when you're running the entire show, such as yourself.
Right. Well, I think what you do is you surround yourself with subject matter experts.
Exactly.
And, my accounting guy here, there's no way in the world that I would know what that guy knows. He's, he's a genius with numbers and spreadsheets and things like that. So you put people in places like that, and that's a key. It brings up another key that I want to touch on because it's great to hire smart people, but I think as leaders sometimes you get caught up in your own way. You've got to get out of their way and let them do what you hired them to do. Don't micromanage things like that. You hire smart people, let them do what they're supposed to do, and you've got to trust them to do what you've hired them to do. And that's when you truly become successful because you're letting the people under you grow and blossom. And that's when beautiful things happen in your company because everybody's doing their thing, what they're great at. It all comes together, and you're like, wow, look at this. 6 months down the road, you look at things and you're like, dang, man, we really came a long way. And that's the reason why.
Yeah, without question. And one of the things I love about this podcast specifically, and apparently we're picking the right leaders to join us as guests because one of my favorite things that I hear is that exact sentiment. All the leaders that I have on when talking about their teams and what makes them successful is when they discuss the people who are surrounding them at the company. You are, I kid you not, the 50th person to say that exact thing.
Right.
I surround myself with people who are SMEs or subject matter experts in their own field, and I'm not going to micromanage them. I brought them on to come on and do a job that they're better at than I am. I just oversee the entire operation. I'm the umbrella. But you can always learn something new about accounting from the accounting experts or the marketing experts or the sales experts. You can't possibly be the expert in every single field,
No.
but the best leaders will bring on the best guys and let them do their job. That's why you brought them on, and that's what makes for an ultra successful team. And I've heard that time and time over and over again. And I just really love that because it's so true versus when you think about a micromanager who is breathing down everybody's neck, thinks like, he knows the most. He's wondering why there's churn on his team or people are unhappy. I mean, you tell me the difference. So I love that sentiment because I just think it holds so much water and there's receipts to prove that from all of these leaders that I have on who seem to share the same opinion as you about what makes for a great team and what has helped you succeed by surrounding yourself with the correct people, of course.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. I think, that's the key to growing in any industry, any business is learning. You don't, I look at it as I've never failed. Have learning opportunities. You know, make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but you have to learn from those mistakes and also learn from the mistakes of others. I've had leaders that were mega micromanagers. And you walk away from those situations and you know in your mind, hey, I am never going to be that guy because that's not who I want to. I don't want to be treated that way, so I'm not going to treat anybody else that way.
Totally. No, and a similar quote, like I've never failed, I've just learned something new. It's like I had another leader on a few weeks ago and he said, I may not always win, but I never lose. Kind of like Michael
Right.
Jordan's actually on the wall behind you there. It's
Yeah,
like I've never
absolutely.
lost, I just ran out of time.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I've never lost. Because if you fail, you're just learning something new and that's fine, which I really love. Because I think it, like I said, it holds a lot of water, and I think it's really important to remember, especially when speaking to people who are looking to advance their career and understand the correct way to grow and how to accept failures, not just in the career path, but within life as well, obviously.
Right.
Robert, so you mentioned earlier that something you were born with, you're wired this way a little bit. I may not be the smartest guy in the room, but one thing that anyone can do is outwork everyone else. That mindset is really slept on, especially these days, as I'm sure you would relatively agree with. Can you speak to where those approaches to the career field came from? Did a mentor inspire that? Where did that come from, I guess, is my question, because a lot of times people have a rough time really sinking their teeth into something and committing and being that guy who's just known as I'm gonna outwork everybody, I'm gonna show up first, I'm gonna leave last kind of thing. Where did that resonate with you and where did this start and what results has it led to other than the obvious?
I think it's deep rooted. It goes back way back in my life when I was even a kid. Not to go too deep into the story, but my dad passed away when I was 7, and we moved to Southern Kentucky with my grandparents to a farm, and I learned a tremendous work ethic at an early age, working on that farm, and I think that just kind of instilled in me the work ethic part of it. But the other part is you know I was always a smaller guy growing up. I didn't really hit my growth spurt until I was like 19 or almost 20,
Me
and
too.
so I was always, kind of pushed around and, told I couldn't do stuff. I was too little, this or that. And I kind of adopted the mentality of, the poster on my wall, tell me I can't. Because guess what? I'm going to work my freaking butt off until I prove you wrong. And, my grandfather gave me one of the most motivational parts of my life ever when I first got into this industry because I took one of those risks we were talking about and I moved. And he told me that it's one of the dumbest things he's ever seen anybody do is, take that kind of risk with a newborn baby and a young wife. And I told him, thank you. That's all I needed to hear right there because now it's going to work no matter what. And and I think that's the drive where it comes in. It's just I think you either have it or you don't. I really can it be developed possibly, but I think it's something you've got to have something in you that wants to be better than you were yesterday. And I try to instill that in my kids. I try to instill it in the young people that work in my company. What are you doing today to be better than you were yesterday? You know, um, one thing I do for my health. I get up every morning at 3:30 and I do a 45-minute hike with a 30-pound rucksack. Um, it was -9 degrees this morning, and I'm out there looking like some psychopath, but it's it's what you do. It's what pushes you, it motivates you to keep going, and I love it. I mean, it's been in me my whole life where I just want to push and do better and better every day. And I think, that's how we get to where we are in business, is wanting that improvement each day.
Do you think it's circumstantial, perhaps? Because I can really resonate with what you mentioned about being a smaller guy. I was that exact kid myself, the shortest kid in elementary school, one of the smaller guys in middle school and high school. Didn't really grow. If you could even, I ended up 5'9". I'll take it. My
That's where I'm
doctor
at. Yep.
my doctor said I was going to be 5'5" when I was in sixth grade. I was really upset about it, but I was a good athlete, made all the sports teams, stuff like that. But I remember, I know I was specifically aggressive when it came to contact sports because you don't want to get outpowered. But
Right.
to your point, you can kind of outwork and utilize other skills that come with that, that size, if you will. I was quick, I was fast, I was nimble, and, eventually got some muscle. So I wonder if it's circumstantial and to your point, it's not something that can be developed, but that work ethic is something that is maybe spawned within you, perhaps based on where you came from. And like I keep saying the word circumstantial, where you came from a young age, and maybe that has, triggered that work ethic, if you will. I don't know. But it's an
Well,
interesting point because I definitely get that
it
aspect.
definitely is. I think, one person I listen to uh, sometimes on the radio, they have a podcast, and they talk about what's that burn in your life that pushes you and causes you to want to do better. And I think that's what it is. It's you have something in your life that, you know, something you didn't like or you don't want to be that you were before, that keeps you going forward and not wanting to be that person, or be in that situation. You know, could be you grew up dirt poor and you're going to put this mega work ethic together where you don't want to be back in that situation like you were when you were young, or you want to prove people wrong. Whatever drives you, that's, I mean, you just latch into that and you move forward with it.
I, I think you hit it right on the head there. I mean, sometimes it's avoidance or it's like, oh, I experienced this when I was a kid. I never want to experience that again. And therefore, I'll do what's it within my control to go and make sure the outcome is better, superior, what have you. I think that's true, but I do think it kind of develops from a young age and it's circumstantial in a way, to your point, and you want to go out and create a different life for yourself because it's within your control, I'd say, right?
Right. I agree 100%.
Can you tell us a little bit? We didn't really talk about this in any of our pre-chats or anything like that, but can you talk about getting up at 3:30 and doing talk to us about this hike, talk to us about the rucksack. I mean, where did that start? I mean, that's crazy discipline. I mean, I think it's nuts to get up before 4:30 or 5. I mean, 3:30, that's early. It's February, it's freezing. I guarantee you do that 5, 7 days a week. I mean, talk to us a little bit
Seven
about
days a
that.
week.
Yeah.
I do it 7 days a week. So for me, I had to go backwards a little bit in my career, and I'll tie this into the business side of things
Sure.
too, because it's all about discipline and doing the right things. So, any time in my career, I can look back, and if there was a point when maybe things weren't heading in the right direction, or I wasn't at what I felt like kind of a pinnacle moment in my career. But the times in my career, I can look and say, man, I was really killing it right then. I was also focused on myself. And I think sometimes in our careers and in business, we get so focused on what we're doing, our jobs and our companies and all these things, we forget about taking care of ourselves. And it is a huge thing. You have to take care of yourself mentally, spiritually, physically, or you're not going to be able to perform and do the things you need to do for your company. And that's where it starts with me. I remember I'd let myself get way overweight. Mentally, I was in a really tough spot, and I'll never forget. I hadn't seen this guy in a few years, and I saw him, and he says, "Dang, Robert, you done got fat," and I'll never forget that. I was like, you know what? I will never be told that again. And and I went on a 6 month terror of weight loss and got myself back into a really good place in life. And then I've kind of just stuck with that. Obviously we bounce around a little bit, here and there, but for the most part, for the last, I'd say 8 years, I have really put 7, 8 years, I guess, I've put a big emphasis on my health and fitness and try to watch what I eat, things like that, because it plays such a big role in where you're at mentally and what you're able to do and how you perform.
Totally. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Days you make it to the gym or you exercise or just do anything active, I mean, your body thanks you. I mean, neurologically, you're getting, those that dopamine rush, if you will, and it makes a gigantic difference in how you feel and mental health, obviously, a huge topic today, and it's like night and day to your point. Um, so no, I think that's a really important thing to note, no matter how busy you are. And I mean, 3:30, I mean, is there a reason you're getting up so early and doing that? I mean, why not like 5, for example, unless you're going in super early, but just
I do
curious
I do
why.
go in I do go in early. I think that's a key. One of the keys to my success as well is I get in here when it's a little quieter,
Sure.
um, get some of my stuff done because I like to spend as much time during the day interacting with our people, being here, whether it's with the sales team, purchasing team, accounting team, drivers, whatever, production team, whoever it is. I want my door to be open and be available anytime for any one of our associates.
Absolutely. No, there is something about working when no one else is working, being in the office when no one else is there, cut out the distractions, knock out a bunch of stuff in half the time, and that way your door's open and you're available to kind of do whatever the day throws at you, which a lot of time, as you know, is obviously unplanned. So, no, I love it. And you've already done your, what did you say, 8 mile hike with a 90
No,
pound rucksack?
it's 45 minutes, so it's about 4 miles usually. Because I'm not I'm only going about 4 miles an hour, so I've got that weighted jacket on, so it takes a little bit of time, but it's also too though getting here early serves another purpose too because our truck drivers are here, loading, getting strapped down, getting ready to hit the road. And, it means something to those guys to see that I'm here, I'm dedicated to their success. It's not just about me. So I think it's important, to be here and let those guys see you and interact with them before they hit the road. Makes a difference.
Totally. No, I mean it's a culture thing. You're just really setting the tone. I mean, hey, if you guys are going to be here at, 4:35, I mean, I'm going to as well. I don't care if I'm the president or boots on the ground. I mean, I wouldn't ask you guys to do anything that I wouldn't do myself, and I'll be there next to you no matter what. I think that's a really, really good way to get buy-in. The only reason I say that or even can say that on good authority is because you and a bunch of other fantastic leaders who I've talked to have said pretty much the same thing.
Well, I think somebody asked me something the other day. We were talking about it, and I said, most of my career, most of my teams would have ran through a brick wall if I asked them to. And they're like, "Well, why do you think that?" I said, "Because they knew I would run through it for them, and that's because I was there, and I am here. Whatever they need doesn't matter to me. I've got guys that come to me and just want to vent about personal stuff. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. It's we have a great culture here, and we're continuing to build it and develop it as we speak, because I've only been here 10 months now, basically. So it's still a work in progress, but we've made a big turn, and we're definitely going in the right direction with that.
It's fantastic. And yeah, I mean, again, I don't understand why the cultural element of companies isn't more centered around that. The results are just so undeniable when you have a leader such as yourself who is in when everyone else gets in. If you don't want to talk about work, if you need to vent, if you have personal stuff going on, I'm here for you. It just is mind-boggling to me that not all managers and leaders, directors, VPs, presidents aren't all like that because not only does it make for a better cultural shift, but you get better impact from your employees. If your employees are happier, the productivity is greater, the efficiency is better. It just leads to so much more than just, I feel like some directors or leaders would say, well, just because my employees are happy doesn't mean there's more money in my pocket, for example. It's like it's not true. It's not true.
Right.
Happier employees are better employees, not just in terms of their mood, but in terms of their output. So I just don't understand how there's even a disconnect in the world today. Obviously, we can't have it perfect across the board, but I agree with you entirely. I mean, why would every business leader not want to have that kind of cultural tone within their company if that's what it leads to? It makes no sense. But most of the leaders I have on here are completely in line with you, and the results are the same, which are, really positive.
Well, I think it goes back to something I said earlier with learning from things you saw from leaders that in your past. I've been in situations where I've watched uh, the top leader walk through a facility and not speak to anyone, whether it, and I'm talking about a performing salesperson. They just walk right past them, and you're like, that's unbelievable. To me, I speak to
Yeah.
everybody. Like, I make it my mission every day to every person I see in my company, I speak to. And here in the office, I literally walk around and say good morning to every single person when they're coming in. It's such a important part of the day. You set the tone for the day. You let them know I know you're here. I appreciate you. It just goes 1,000 miles. And for people to miss that as leaders, it's unbelievable to me. I mean, just in my role, I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, it's so obvious and such a small thing to do, like you said, but it goes 1,000 miles. So it's like, why wouldn't everyone do that? I mean, the audacity for that one specific person to walk, through the floor and not say a word to anybody is insane. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's requires
Right.
almost nothing, but yet it goes 1,000 miles if you would have just done it. I mean, it's insane. I agree with you entirely. Makes no sense. So, Robert, I know we've talked a lot about this, I should say. But one last question before we move on in terms of leadership, and decision making, running the company. You're obviously a leader known for balancing short-term demands with long-term goals, and you've demonstrated that. How would you describe your approach to decision making and team leadership?
Well, I think it starts with the team leadership part. You empower those people to make decisions. And when you have collectively five, six people making decisions, all that decision making doesn't fall right on top of you. And it goes back to the old saying where, two heads are better than one. Well, so is six. And when you have a great collaborative group of people who can get in a room, whether it's an easy conversation or a difficult conversation, you know, everybody has a voice, and then we collectively can make those decisions together. I mean, ultimately, yes, I could overrule or whatever, but 99% of the time I don't, because they're experts in what they're doing, and I have to take what they know, and I have to put that into consideration for every decision that is made.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have a whole team of experts in their field, why would you,
Right.
why would you not listen to them? And I
Right.
think as you know better than I do, there are leaders out there who just overrule and just have a single agenda and they don't listen to anybody. And it's sometimes it works out, most of the time it probably doesn't. I think it's, again, pretty simple concept, but something that's slept on. I mean, you have six, leaders in the room with you who all have an opinion on a matter. It's like, yeah, you better believe my ears are wide open and we're going to figure
Right.
out, the best strategy in terms of moving forward on X, Y, and Z is based on what these experts who are sitting in the room with me are. Otherwise, why that's why they're here, right? And so,
Right.
again, it seems simple, but I guess it just seems like sometimes presidents, people in decision-making roles, um, have that single-minded agenda and overrule and don't listen, which I would say more times than not doesn't lead to a successful result.
Right. Well, I think too, to take that next level, there's going to be times too, as a leader, that, I'll have somebody come to me with a decision they want to make, and I've been down that road and I know it's wrong. I still won't overrule. I'll give them my perspective on it and say, hey, listen, man, this is what happened to me in the past with that situation. I'm gonna give you this information. You make the decision you feel is the right one to make. And sometimes they'll listen to what I said and change their tune and do a different way. But sometimes they go ahead with their idea and then they fail, or they have a learning opportunity is the way I look at it. And then we sit down and we go through and we talk about it. But I think it's important to let your leaders do that, because they're never going to be able to grow if they're not making decisions and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. So I think that's a part that gets overlooked a lot of times too, because it'd be easy for me to sit here looking at things from a different elevation and say, I don't know about that one, buddy. But they've got to learn. And, as long as it's not detrimental to the company or to going to get somebody hurt or fired or something like that, you just got to let it go and you got to let it happen. And you got to be
That's
humble enough as a leader to sit back and allow people to make those decisions. And hey, I'll be the first one to tell you, I've been wrong before too, and say,
sure.
hey, I don't think that's going to work. And they prove me wrong. And I'm like, you know what? That's awesome. I'm glad you did that.
Man, that's some true leadership right there. I mean, sometimes the experts in the room with you aren't willing to listen or are gung ho on, hey, I think this will really work. And you're sitting there saying, I know it doesn't because I've experienced it myself. But to your point, as long as it's not detrimental to the company, no one's going to get fired, no one's going to get hurt. Sure, go give it a try. Let me know if you can make it work, great. But you let me know how it goes. And either way, if it works out, it's a win. And if not, opportunity to learn, which is huge
Right.
because they remember those things. I mean, I think back to the early stages of my career and all my failures or mishaps or whatever you want to call them. I remember pretty much every single one. I mean, you could call my old boss right now from my first corporate job and ask him if about any of the times I messed up or screwed up. I remember each one, because that's how you learn. You don't make the mistake again.
Right.
So for you to be sitting there in a position saying, go for it. This is what my 2 cents is on the situation. This is what I've experienced with this exact situation, but you go and give it a try and let me know. If it works out, awesome. But if not, you better believe they're not going to forget it. You can turn it into a really valuable lesson. And I think that's huge.
Well, the other part of that too is you've empowered them to make a decision that they feel is very important, and you're giving them you're encouraging them to be better and be great. So you're gonna the company's gonna win in the long run, no matter what.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's tremendous. Giving them the opportunity to make the decision, empowering them to go and execute an idea that they had, win or lose. I mean, as you and I have been talking about, can't really lose at this point because you're either going to learn or you're going to win. And the
Right.
company ultimately in the long run is also going to win, which is, I think, just tremendous. Um, something that again, it seems so simple, but it's just so powerful, I think, and really an invaluable takeaway in terms of good leadership and obviously good mentorship coming from you, Robert, as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So shifting gears a little bit, Robert, how do you see the building supply industry evolving? What role does innovation play in maintaining a competitive edge for you guys over at Direct Lumber and Door?
Well, innovation, you're either moving forward or you're dying, one of the two. And, 25 years ago in this industry, if you had told me some of the stuff that we use today, we were going to be using, it would have seemed like, some kind of sci-fi movie or something. But it's definitely came a long way, and there's so much more to go. I mean, I'm really intrigued by the AI part of the world right now to see how that can play into what we do. But just in terms of automation with our machinery and the manufacturing side, or and data monitoring in the computer system, or whether it's for our inventory management system, or even our fleet, the DOT stuff and things like that, where we've came from over the past, I think this is year 28 for me now. So, over the past 25, 30 years, it's came so far, and I feel like we're still way behind the rest of the world as far as in this building industry. So I'm excited and eager to see what comes next in this, because it's there's going to be a breakthrough with some stuff. And I'm excited to be in the time where I'm going to be a part of it.
Totally. Yeah, no, and in the industry, definitely traditionally 5, 10 years behind technologically. And a lot of leaders who, are in a similar industry as you have told me, look, we've been doing business this way for 20 years, 50 years, some cases 100 years,
Right.
made hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars, depending on who you're talking to. Why do I need to make, because a technological shift is difficult. It requires a lot of bandwidth. There's sometimes years of onboarding and cutting pain points out and whatnot. But something that I've been hearing more and more is that we want to make the shift, start utilizing some of these tools that are available, especially in the tech space, but we don't want to be the first ones to do it. How do you feel on that? I mean, I thought it was interesting. Yeah, we want to do it. We don't want our competitors to leave us in the dust, but we don't want to be the one leading the charge necessarily.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, we've got there's some big companies in this industry that are toying around with some different things, and I think they are big enough that they're becoming the guinea pigs on their own. And I think that's going to open the door for the rest of the world to follow suit. But I would agree with most of them. Nobody wants to be that first guinea pig to jump out
Yeah,
there.
the sacrificial lamb, if you
Right.
will.
Well, and for for smaller companies, it's a bigger risk for sure.
Sure.
Um, I think it's about risk management and how you want to go into that world of technology, and really do some homework and see what fits into what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish, and what can you get into with the least amount of risk. And obviously cost is a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, and then maintaining efficiency and productivity while making a shift, obviously,
Right.
because it's a tale as old as time. How many times have we heard the story of, oh, we changed softwares or we integrated some new platform and the technical debt cost us like a year, for
Right.
example. My IT team was tied up. It was a distraction to our sales team, our marketing team. We had data all over the place. I mean, more stories are like them than not, I'd say. So I think that doesn't help from the software perspective in terms of encouraging companies to make the change and take the leap
Right.
to harnessing some of these new technologies. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. Cost and maintaining efficiency when making a change is obviously huge for anybody. I mean, no business wants to shut down for 6 months because they're buying something that's supposed to make their life easier, yet it's making things 10 times harder and it's costing a
Right.
fortune, etc. So, yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. And I think it's a fair point as well, of course.
Well, I mean, there are things that you can do, even on a smaller scale. Like we've used technology to automate things and like payments and process, for example, credit apps, things like that. There's things you can do that are minor. When you get into the more sophisticated AI type stuff where you're really trying to turn the corner with technology, that's a different conversation. But there are definitely things out there that have been proven and that you can get into to streamline your operations and become more efficient with certain aspects of the business.
Totally. And Robert, I wanted to ask you, in dealing with a commodity such as lumber right now, um, you know, what challenges are you facing with constantly changing market dynamics? And how have you successfully adapted your strategies to overcome them? Especially like I said, you're doing lumber, prices are changing. I mean, now we're dealing with tariffs and whatnot. I mean, how are you overcoming some of these challenges that are impacting your business more so than not, especially as of late?
But you have to be strategic. You have to be, have to have a strategic pricing model. You have to understand what's the pricing that the market can bear. How are you buying against the market? Are you underperforming? Are you overperforming? Where are you at in the market? And you just have to really understand your position and what are your competitors doing. It's a delicate balance. I mean,
Sure.
it's one of those things because it's a very, it's an expensive product that we're selling. We're selling products to build homes, and as you're well aware here in the Colorado market, I mean, housing is expensive, and so it's even more delicate in a situation like this where affordability is a huge concern. So I think you just have to go into it strategically. You have to work with your vendors, partners. You have to work with your customers, and keep a clear, open line of communication. And I
Totally.
think that's where you win. Like we communicate with our customers what the market's doing on a weekly basis, and we've had a lot of questions about the tariffs, and you know what, we don't really have answers for that stuff because we don't know how that's going to affect us.
Yeah. And
Um,
also out of your control at this point.
right, and we don't have the luxury here in Colorado to use um, southern yellow pine, for example, species because it just won't perform here in this dry
In the
market.
climate.
So
Yeah.
um, it's clear communication and your strategy. I think is the key to doing that with and maintaining your delicate balance between what you're buying and who you're selling it to.
Right. And I guess we didn't really get into this in terms of what direct lumber and door actually does, but I'm assuming, and keep me honest here, are you guys a lumber and door distributor, or are you just, I mean, what is the main focus? Obviously, the name is in the title, more or less, but are
Right.
you guys selling lumber to GCs, subs to go and build the houses as well as you also sell doors, or how are the doors and lumbers connected? I mean, just give us a quick breakdown as to what your guys' predominant focus is.
So basically, we sell to home builders, homeowners, general contractors, turnkey framers, multifamily builders as well. We sell lumber, trusses, windows, exterior doors, interior doors, trim, the basic stuff that you need to build your house. Just normal building supply stuff, and we ship it. We cover all the way from Colorado Springs to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and all across the range. So it's we have a big offering and a big coverage area.
Got it. Got it. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And Robert, with that being said, kind of wrapping up here, you've had an illustrious career. You've moved, I think you mentioned 9 times, always learning, always growing, always trying to better yourself. Obviously, now the president of Direct Lumber and Door here in Colorado. What advice would you give to aspiring leaders in the building supply field or in any industry that's comparable or related, who aim to create, sustainable growth, lasting impact similar to you, who eventually want to end up running a company like yourself? What would you say to some kid who's listening, who's thinking to themselves, "Yeah, I would like to follow a similar career path to Robert," and what would that ultimate message be from you?
I think to keep it simple, you have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to um, take care of, take risks. Like I said, every move I made was a risk because I was moving to a new place, a new city, sometimes new states, but you have to be willing to take that risk and try to outwork everybody that's in front of you and be willing to learn, make mistakes, make decisions that, might come back and bite you. I've done it. I've had to, and be willing to own the mistake. I
Accountability. Yeah.
remember a leader early in my career, one of his one of his favorite things to say was, "Look, man, don't do this, do this." And he said, just point it back. He said, you own it, you know, whether, if you're a leader and your team is doing great, give them all the praise. If, you're a leader and things aren't going well, you take all the blame. And I think that is key to growing and being successful is, surround yourself with great people, get a mentor, find somebody to look up to and want to aspire to be, and that's where you get. I remember my first manager, he told me, he was like, "Hey man, this is a great company, great place." He says, "I made this much money last year." And I remember as a young man and thinking, "Dang man, that would be awesome." And just you got to find those reasons to push and to go.
Absolutely. No, and I think you brought up a lot of really great points there. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like the quarterback mantra in terms of accountability. When you win, it's we. When you lose, it's me. And I
Right,
think it goes a really long way. And we talked about culture and getting buy-in and being a good leader. I mean, I think that checks all the boxes. And ultimately, that's another simple concept that's not necessarily as prevalent as maybe me and you would like, but accountability is huge. Learning from your mistakes is huge. It's a maturity thing. I used to freak out when I was in my, lower 20s at work. I make a mistake and it's like, oh my God, the world's ending. And finally, I had a mentor who's like, dude, you're fine. It's good. Are you going to do it again? It's like, no, then done. And so
right,
I think some of these things are just so critical, especially for the kids who are coming up and trying to figure out what they're trying to do and understand how to learn and grow and develop. And some of these things, I keep mentioning this, they sound so simple, but they're so important and I feel like are overlooked a lot of times. And I've personally benefited from a ton of stuff that you've mentioning just through this conversation is all, and also things you're saying that are applicable to the last 10 years I've had in the professional workplace. And it's really powerful and it's really meaningful because it's true. It,
right.
it goes a long way if you're able to harness some of these ideals and take them to heart and apply them to what you're doing.
No, I agree.
So, Robert, with that, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here on the Results Loading podcast again. As I've mentioned many times, a ton of really invaluable takeaways here, tremendous insights, and I think the theme of the day is you've really figured out how to be a great leader and obviously the results have followed you and so I commend you on that and just want to say thanks again for sharing some of this stuff and I think it's really important to keep in mind. So yeah, very much appreciated and good luck to you and I'll look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to get on and share, some insights and hopefully touch somebody and inspire them to be a better leader and maybe adopt some of these things.
Plenty of content to pick from here, man. So I think there's plenty to choose from and plenty of takeaways. So I agree with you, and I think some people listening will. So appreciate that, and
Yeah, thank you.
again, good luck to you. Thanks again.
Appreciate it.